What up, simps? Back for another round of Itchy Tasty. I'm going to go over 5 horror games that I found on Itch.io. Tell you what I think about them. I'm going to change it up a little bit real quick. I'll let you know about this. Normally I was going off of a 1 to 10 scoring system. This time I'm just going to tell you one of 5 options. If it's stay away, if it's meh, if it's give it a try, if it's worth playing, or if it's so good you should be giving the developers money. And I have a little spin wheel for it. It's probably going to look like shit, but let's just go. Okay, so the first game I played today was called The House in the Woods. This is a pretty interesting game. It was based on the Blair Witch Project. And I can't remember if they specifically also said Hereditary, the movie Hereditary, on the itch page. But I could definitely see some Hereditary influences in there as well. This is a pretty simple game. You essentially wake up in the woods and you hear screaming. And you're just kind of like left to your own devices. You can go basically anywhere from the point of your camp. But the goal of the game is to find the house in the woods and progress through the house. And I don't mean this negatively, but I found it kind of weird how open the game was at the beginning, and then how immediately linear it becomes when you find the house. The game was kind of creepy when you were walking around in the woods, but the horror factor definitely amped up considerably once you find the house. It has a little bit of tinges of Resident Evil 7 with the layout of the house, and the Hereditary influence was noticed by me when basically any point you look out the windows you can see like cultists, which was kind of creepy. But once you're in the house, the sound direction is like super fine-tuned. I was really digging it. There's constantly just like creaks and cracks and snaps of twigs that you can hear basically from all directions, and if you're wearing headphones it comes through really well. There's a couple of gotcha moments in terms of just kind of like you progress through the house and then you're suddenly somewhere else, and it ends pretty well, albeit a little stereotypically for something like this. I don't want to say much more than what I've said already because it's so short, but it evokes a really specific kind of horror. If I had to give it a rating, I would definitely give it a worth playing. The atmosphere was on point, the sound design was great, graphics were pretty nice. There's no reason not to play this one.
That's not the name of the game.
What is it? The second game I played was called Never Apart, apparently, and it was advertised on Itch as a PT-influenced game, and I'm totally down with that. It's got the repeating hallway thing. It's even got a radio announcer that progressively gets a little bit more and more malicious. Overall, it was pretty simple. There weren't any puzzles to speak of. To be honest, I've really got not much to say about this one. I'm trying to think of anything apart from giving away the scares. The radio announcer's talking about a murderer that apparently has come back. There's a couple points where like the lights go out and you hear like whispering. I think it's like binaural, you know what I'm saying. It plays with the left and right positions on speakers and headphones. That part was pretty good, but there was quite a bit of jump scares, and most of them were of a model that was almost essentially like T-posing. That was meant to be kind of creepy and intimidating, and it just really wasn't. The aesthetic of the hallway was nice. The use of the doors were used as well as they probably could have been. You know, you go through the hallway one time, a door doesn't open, you go through the hallway again, that door will open, and some spook will be in it. That's kind of really all I got. I didn't hate it, but I really don't have too much good to say about it apart from that, really. So if I had to give it a rating, I think I'm just going to give it a meh. It's not quite at the level of being avoided at all costs, but you could do a lot better than this one. And the third game I played today was called Bleak Shore. This was definitely an experimental type of game. It starts off with you receiving a voicemail from presumably your girlfriend. There's no spoken dialogue, so you just get to read the voicemail. And it's cryptic and worrying enough that your character decides to go to Bleak Shore because that's where she says that she is. It has a very walking sim type of feel. It kind of actually reminded me of Dear Esther and the aesthetic, the kind of like overcasty beach kind of vibe. It's not really actually a horror game. It's a game about, if I had to put my finger on it, I think it would be a game about overcoming personal anxiety. There's a sub-theme of body dysphoria. Your character is, I guess, trans or something along those lines. It's only briefly touched upon. You pick up items all over the beach that belong to your girlfriend, which enhances the urgent need to find her. But that's the groundwork of the story. The gameplay itself is fine. Like I said, it's like a walking sim, but it's a really big beach. And I spent quite a bit of time just trying to find anything. Some of the music sounds like it could be audio cues, like leading you in like a direction. Like there's like some audio clicks that you can hear. That seems like it might be pointing you in like a radar kind of sense towards another item to find. But as far as I could tell, that was not the case. So it led to a lot of aimless wandering. The only horror that I could really pinpoint is occasionally there will be people in the forest kind of staring at you, but when you get close, they just turn back into a tree. A little bit of mindfuckery going on with it, but I wandered around long enough that I saw it so many times that the effect lost its impact. The first time I saw it, it genuinely like creeped me out, but then like by the third time, I wasn't even fazed by it. This one's kind of actually hard to rate. I think it really depends on what you feel about walking sims. If you're really into walking sims, I think it's a definite worth playing. But if you're more kind of on the fence about them, it's a give it a try at best. I'm kind of in the middle of that somewhere, so I think my final rating is a give it a try. The overall kind of overcasty vibe is something I really, really enjoy. So that's what kind of pushes it over the edge into the more positive spectrum. That was Bleak Shore. The fourth game I played today was called Undying Beast. And I was really, really excited for this one because it is by Kira. If you don't know who Kira is, he's famous for making Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion and Lost in Vivo. Lost in Vivo is genuinely one of the best horror games that I've played in a long while. So when I found out that he had made a game for the Horror Jam, I was stoked to play it. This is a short atmospheric game with a very cryptic story that's spoon-fed to you over the course of the game. The game takes place in a very desolate, foggy, borderline post-apocalyptic kind of setting. It almost looks like the location that the original couple episodes of Salad Fingers takes place in. But the goal of the game is to find these computers that provide you with the story beats. Through the fog, there's a bright light that will appear, and all you have to do is go towards that light, and that's where the computer will be. There's an optional thing that you can do where you can find 7 daffodils, and finding the 7 flowers unlocks the second ending. That's pretty much the whole game. It's kind of like how Bleak Shore was. It's like an experimental kind of thing. It's a mood, it's a vibe more than a real game. It's less of a walking sim than Bleak Shore, but it's more of a game than Bleak Shore. Overall, I'm not disappointed by this game, but I do wish there was a little bit more to it. But that being said, my final rating for this one will be, give it a try. It's super short. I got both endings in the course of, I think, maybe 15 minutes. And it's made by Kira. You really, honestly can't go wrong. Okay, and the last game I played today was called Formless, and this was rough. Right off the bat, there was no way to make it full screen, which is not inherently awful, but it's a sign. Second of all, the mouse sensitivity. Picture the highest sensitivity that you could possibly put on a first-person game, and then triple that. That was what the sensitivity was. And then on top of that, the only direction key that you can press to move at all was W. ASD did nothing, so you had to just constantly be moving forward and then move the camera in the direction that you wanted to move in. But the sensitivity was so high that you basically just had to like on it to move in the direction that you wanted to go in. It was pretty cryptic, honestly. Like, you walk down a hallway, you pick up a vial, you flip a switch, you have to go back to where you started, and there's a door open, and then you have to fill the vial with blood for some reason, and then put the vial of blood on an object, and then that teleported you to another area, in which case you had to do like a really, really awful physical puzzle thing where there was like these like spikes moving across the room, and you had to avoid all of them and hit a switch and then go back and then keep going. And I just could not bring myself to beat this one because of how god awful the controls were, and that they expected me to do that. There's two positives I can say about this though. The really short draw distance meant that the load-ins were effectively creepy. At the very beginning of the game, you walk forward immediately and stumble into like a red corpse that looks like he's like swinging from the ceiling. And that was genuinely creepy when the game started, and I was like, oh, maybe this won't be so bad. Maybe I'll be able to look past the game's faults. Nope. The second cool thing was the dialogue that displayed when you investigated one of the corpses. It was written in a way that felt like the person knew how to write vague, cryptic dialogue and make it sound interesting, but they just didn't know how to write and code a game. So I'm gonna rate this one a big ol' stay away. You have literally no reason to play this one. I'm doing you a favor by telling you about it. And thus ends another episode of Itchy Tasty. I appreciate you all sticking around if you have. Maybe give me some suggestions for next episode in the comments if you want to. The last couple weeks have been pretty short. A lot of the games I've picked are either just not too great and I don't have much to say about them, or they're just too short to even talk much about them even if they are good. Shoot me some suggestions if you want. If not, I'll still be here next episode, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
'Tomato is a fruit, but it also a vegetable.